Hi and welcome to my channel. I'm Bunny or LittleGunBunny, and today we're talking about silver bullets, which, if you can't tell, is why I'm dressed in Victorian undergarments, because we're going to be going deep into some Gothic lore here and talk about where this idea came from for silver bullets for fighting vampires and werewolves and supernatural, just in the general sense, and is this even practical? Let's get started. Now, if you don't know, I am a huge fan of Gothic fiction and just supernatural things in general, so I definitely had to do this video. I also just thought it'd be interesting because I wanted to learn about this, and it's just my channel about things that I want to learn about, and so I now got to do a whole, deep dive on this whole thing, and so I'm very happy that, I get to share this knowledge and talk about this because it's really cool. So first we're going to talk about silver and where this came from, and then we're going to talk about its, I guess, how it would work in a gun. Can silver actually be used to make a bullet, etc. When I started my channel, I decided that I was not going to monetize through YouTube, and I wasn't going to do sponsorships unless Uncrustables wants to sponsor me. So I decided to basically be crowdfunded. The way that you can support me is through my Patreon, which is the link below. The paid tier starts at $5, and then there are many levels with different perks from there. So please go check it out. It's pretty cool. Yeah, you can also support me by liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing my videos, checking your feed every Monday and every Thursday for my new videos, because that's when they come out, and YouTube's algorithm is a little bit of a bitch sometimes. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video and my channel in general. Bye. So let's start about the history. The oldest reference I can find for silver bullets in general is used against werewolves is all from the 20th century. Now, the idea of silver for supernatural vampires and werewolves goes back much farther, and the references go back so many years that it's I don't have a really good pinpoint at the beginning. The general idea is that silver, being antimicrobial, is able to ward off supernatural forces because of this, and you can make weapons out of silver, therefore, and jewelry, therefore it can protect you, such as garlic also is antimicrobial, which protects you against vampires, and things like vampirism and werewolves are often associated historically with disease. And disease is often an explanation for why historically people would tell stories about these things and about these creatures in the unexplained. So supernatural often comes from the concept of diseases and things that we don't necessarily understand. So back to silver bullets specifically. So let's start. So the oldest reference I can find for bullets being made out of silver is 20th century. Now, a 1946 account of slaying the beast of, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Gibbons, 1767, where the hunter used melted down religious metals to bring it down the werewolf. And then also the Werewolf of Paris, 1933. The werewolf is wounded by a silver bullet. There are also some folklore accounts in Sweden that use theirs against other mystical entities, not necessarily werewolves. And the idea was known enough that Batman in 1939, so this has already been established lore, I guess, for such a long time, that in 1939 Batman considered silver bullets the only way to kill a vampire. Even though the earlier accounts are only really from the early 1900s, this has already been enough established kind of folklore that, yes, we know this. This is kind of already a thing in pop culture. It gets really solidified and popularized with The Wolfman, Universal Pictures, 1941, and separately with The Lone Ranger in the 40s, who used silver bullets as protection, as problem solvers, associated with pure magical heart. Both associated with magical pure of heart. I can read my own script. Other Western heroes are said to have used silver bullets as well. It's the magical power of silver in folklore goes way back, and is almost certainly related to its antimicrobial properties, which is also why it's so desirable for tableware and utensils. All right, now we're going to go into what are these actually useful, and would this even possibly work in a gun? And is it reasonable if you encounter a vampire to get yourself some silver bullets? And can you use them? And what This is going to be a pain in the ass. So the fun thing about silver bullets is they present a series of interesting challenges for the bullet maker. Now, this is not just something that you can go pick up from bullets. You know, you can get aluminum and brass cartridges, but I think we're talking about, you know, cartridge casing. We're not talking about the casing now, we're talking about the bullet itself, which is usually made out of lead. And so actual bullet itself would present challenges, so depending on the era and like the era and firearm and type of firearm you're planning to shoot down your vampire or werewolf with. Shotguns are probably going to be the easiest, being smoothbore and generally a single shot or fully manual. The silver is simply simply lighter for the volume given than lead. But depending on the shotgun and the silver going into it, it might not even need to be recast. Silver coins could easily be fired from a muzzle loading 12 gauge, for example, and nothing but a knife and some creativity would be required to put a few silver coins in a modern 12 gauge shell. So if you're in a real bind and you have some silver coins laying around, that's, I think what you should use for your shot. For vampires, kill them with money, which is kind of hilarious. I like this idea. For a flintlock, which is, a popular gun historically, the same would be roughly true. A lighter ball would be a bit faster and at the muzzle and would drag it slow down a little bit more. So you would have to, so the point of aim might be a little bit different, but they are not the same most precise weapons to begin with. So you would just have to adjust to that ammo specifically. Practice, which would be very expensive practice. Oh my God. Once rifling enters the picture, the challenges increase immensely. Silver is much harder than lead, so ramming the silver ball down a rifle barrel would be considerably harder. Though silver also contracts more than lead as it cools. So if molded in the same mold, silver bullets might be enough smaller to offset that, and thus not be spun and lose velocity and gas getting around it. But if it was sized correctly, the silver bullet would be much harder to ram down a rifle. So the rifleman is pretty much getting one shot only. That is until the mini ball shows up on the scene. From here on out, silver bullet design is going to need to account for the base being more resistant and expanding more base being more resistant and resistant to expanding, and more energy is going to be lost to engraving the rifling into the bullet. But once the mold is made correctly, the silver bullets just work. So the real issue here is making the mold. In cartridge firearms, silver is relatively close to the hardness of copper bullet jackets anyway, so a silver bullet cast to the right size should perform acceptably. Now, getting the right molds again for the silver bullet becomes more challenging. It might be a case of making your own molds that fit. One of the better ideas some modern writers have come up with is simply putting a silver pellet or a plug into the center of a hollow point design, as with Powerball, or filling the hollow point with silver when the hunter has more limited facilities. And modern media is rife with silver bullets. Monster Hunter by Larry Correia, the Blade movies, the Underworld, all have large quantities of silver ammo being fired from everything from specialty handguns to machine guns. So I would assume personally, my personal headcanon is that they have custom molds and a custom for the silver bullets, or they're filling hollow points with silver, which is a great way to kind of like not have an entire bullet cast out of silver, because that can be expensive. Because silver is about $50 per ounce, and an ounce would yield roughly about 110 grain 9mm yield roughly 4 110 grain 9mm projectiles, meaning that a pure silver bullet would be roughly $12 each. Each bullet, that's like a very good, expensive bullet. You really want to make sure that you're killing that vampire on that first shot, because it's $12 of a bullet before you even put them into ammo, and then that production cost is going to cost way more. So when Kate Beckinsale is running around spraying from twin Berettas in the Underworld, she's spending about $200 each mag, which makes my 10mm habit look cheap. Yes, this entire video may have been to defend that, and also because I've been watching way too many movies with thirsty vampires and stuff. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I certainly did. Bye!
Je vou dar.